Hi there. So I've been working on a series of videos to educate people on how to build a pipeline and build on Jenkins. So this has been really interesting for me to revisit this topic after about 4 years of not visiting it. Jenkins hasn't changed much since 2016, at least from what I can tell. But anyway, here's how I did this. I want to basically have this Tomcat server running with a message on it. So here's a web deployment on a production server. The server is called production.jeffreyflow.com, and I have this little application running here, which doesn't do much. It says hello world. Okay, so in the world of CI/CD, you would want to change software and make a change and have it automatically built. So without going into gory detail, let's look at how that can be done. So I have repositories on GitHub. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing my code up this repository on GitHub with this window here. I'll push the code up. When that code is checked in, or I would say pushed to GitHub, GitHub will trigger a build off called deploy Tomcat or Maven build Tomcat, and that will then get pushed to Tomcat. I'm sorry, pushed to GitHub again as a different repository, and then it gets pulled down on production and executed as a web server. So here's the web server. And let me show you some of the repositories here quickly. Uh, all right, I'm logging into GitHub. And here's some of the repositories here. So this one I've put source into. So this repository here contains the source code of what I'm working with. This is basically a Tomcat, embedded Tomcat web server with a message in it. That's all this really is. And the message will put out hello world. So if I was to change the software and say I wanted to make this message hello world and something below it, well, I would go into the source code here, and this is a repository that I've checked out on my local iMac here. And I would muck around in the source here and go to, say, source, and go to main, web app. Okay, and we'll do a VI on this file here. And this is very simple. It's just some HTML that is the same as HTML over here. So let's add a line to this and then deploy it. So I'll just cut this line out here and do a paste on it. And I will say something like built and deployed from Jenkins. Okay, so that should change it. So once I make a change, we can use Git to see what the change was. Let me go up to the right directory here. You want to do it at the very top of your repository here. Okay, this is the top of the repository, and it matches the one here that we're looking at in GitHub. So now I've made a change. Okay, and it says, yeah, you changed something in here. That's fine. So let's add it. That adds a file in. Okay, modified it. Let's do a git commit. And say we added a message. Okay, that'll work. All right, we're committed, but we aren't really pushed yet. So once I do push this thing, what you'll see is Jenkins here will fire up from a webhook and it will start to build. So keep your eye here on Jenkins and let's do a push. And this is the heart of CI/CD is developers will push code and the build will happen automatically. And if you're reckless like I am, you can deploy instantly, but this is only a demo. You don't want to ever deploy this stuff without testing it. So we're just assuming it works and deploying it. Very bad practice, but hey, it's a demo. Okay, git push minus all. Okay, and now watch Jenkins on the left here. Okay, let's see if it pushed. Yeah, it pushed. Okay, main to main. Here on Jenkins, you'll see it should fire a build up here. Looks like it did right here. It's building it. So right now this Maven Tomcat build's working. Then we're going to push this thing up to a repo, another repo, which I use for deployments, for the actual artifacts that are built. So that will deploy it to here. The artifacts get deployed. It's doing that now. And now we're going to take those artifacts and download them from GitHub from a different repository and push them over to the prod server. And you can verify this by doing a refresh on the page. And we can see that, yep, this one started first. This one went next because of the timing here, and this one just finished. So with that all done, our web page here should change because we've done a change. We've deployed to production, and if I do a refresh here, you see that the message we put in did indeed work. So this whole pipeline has worked and deployed to a production server. In the real world, you would not do this. You would basically put this on a branch and you would test the branch. And if it worked, you would merge it into staging. You would test it in staging and put in more changes and then test it again. And when it finally worked, you would then deploy it from production. So this is really only a three-stage pipe. Okay, let's see what happened here. On our GitHub, we can take a look at this hello world. It didn't change. But if we look at these other repositories here, they did change. So if you take a peek at the repository that, well, yeah, this one did change too. We did a check into it. So we could take a look at this one, hello world, and it updated 2 minutes ago. So yeah, we did some changes here. And this one I use just for bits. So we put the artifact bits in here and source main and target, and it's used to simply store the build that's built, and then we clone it down to our production and use it. So now that we see how it's worked, let's go into the actual steps of how it worked and why. So with that, we go back here in the Jenkins and take a look. So here in Jenkins, the first thing we did was this Maven build Tomcat job. And as you can see, I've been trying this all day here pretty much. But let's go into configuration now, and that's where you can see what the thing actually does. So I have been trying to integrate this with Jira. That's not working yet. But here is where I'll pull this stuff down, and I have a key that is not really needed to be a deploy key on GitHub and pull stuff down. Since I'm public, anybody can pull stuff down, including me, so it doesn't matter. So anyway, we're gonna build main here, and I found that this job, the way it was set up, we can build with the POM XML, which will build just fine. And then what I did was I chained these together like a pipe. So at the very bottom here, if the build is stable, we're going to take a peek at the next build here. So the post action here is build other projects. And the other project, the next one we build is this one. Going to leave the page because it only changed. Okay, so the next build we do is the push the artifacts to the Git repo. So this one was, I guess, a bit tricky, and they want you, they meaning Jenkins has a Git publisher which works with everything but GitHub. It doesn't understand how to do an HTTPS. I wasted a lot of time trying to make it work, and then I discovered it's not going to work. So what I did was I basically, on this one, I am using a shared repository. So that's something else to talk about. So between this one here, this build here, if you look at this closely, you'll find I do have a shared repository in here under advanced. And that's how I basically take the workspace and take it from one job to the other. with a shared workspace or shared workspace they call it. So let's find that build environment. There's an advanced here. So here's the custom workspace here, and I have that on the build server. So yeah, there's a lot of steps to this thing. So basically we have a bunch of servers running that build this thing, and Jenkins should never build. It has to get built on a build server, which they call an agent. So this directory here is actually on the agent server. So let me show you the agents first. Um, Here's all the VMs I have running for this demo, and this build server has an agent on it, which Jenkins is calling this build server here to do builds. And those builds will appear in a workspace. And in our case, we have a custom workspace with this. Production is a server that is serving this web page here. So we have this common workspace between these two builds, between this first build here, this Maven build, and then the second build here. These two have the shared workspace. So if you look at this one, you'll see it has the same shared workspace. Let's go down here to the advanced section here, if I can find it. Advanced, yeah, there's the same workspace there. So I'm not sure how this will work in a high volume setup, and maybe that would want to be dynamic if possible, but it's working for now for this demo. So that's about that. I'm trying to integrate Jira, and I haven't had that working yet. So this build, I don't do any source code management. I'm using a shell here entirely. So I have a secret here of how to do a push to GitHub. I have a secret encoded here. And basically this whole thing works on this shell right here. So this shell here is important to understand. So if you look at it very carefully, the first thing I do is basically I remove the Git from the workspace. I remove the entire Git stuff because I'm not really doing revisioning here. And if I was doing it right, I'd probably want to revision all of my builds on GitHub and have them all revisioned with a timestamp. But for this demo, I didn't want to do that yet. So that will be for a future demo. I just basically remove the Git files. I do a Git init and the branch B to have main. And that matches pretty much what's up on GitHub. I will add the files called target, and I'll add the files called source, and I'll do a commit, and my credentials are all here. So we'll do an add the origin with the password, and I'll do a push to main, and that basically takes the built bits from the workspace and puts them up on this repository on GitHub. So the bits all go in here to stage Tomcat, and these are the bits here I need to run this thing. I need the source, main, all the bits in here. Let's see, can I jump into those? Yeah, there we go. So Java stuff in here to run the Tomcat embedded, and the target files, all that stuff's in here. So this is what I need to run this thing, and so that's what I have it up there for. And so I just copy it up there. Now on the third build is interesting, or the third prod deploy is maybe a little more interesting. So here I want to go deploy Tomcat demo to prod. My production server is, well, it's this one here called production, obviously. And let's take a look at how that's done. So since we have all the bits for production, all the artifacts on stage Tomcat, I can just do a clone of that on the prod. So I would want to in the future use Docker for this and use Kubernetes and make a Docker image. And I think I'll do that in the next demo. But right now, I wanted to show how you can take source code, upload it to GitHub, well, actually have source code on GitHub, change it, have a webhook, fire up Jenkins, build it, and then push the artifacts back to a different repository on GitHub for deployment to production. So now let's take a look at this deployment to prod. And Again, I used a lot of shell for this thing, unfortunately, but that's what I had to do. So this doesn't do much. It just uses shell again. I'm basically more comfortable with shell than anything. So here I have keys defined. So on the production mode, I will SSH from the build node. So the build node has keys, and let me jump on the build node and show you all that stuff. So it's not mysterious what I'm doing here. Let's SSH the build node. Build, what do I call it? Build. And hopefully this will work. Okay, so we're on the build node now, and I'm going to go to root. And then we're going to go to Jenkins. I'm going to go to the home of Jenkins, to its home, which is there. And anyway, you'll see a .ssh in here, I hope. There it is. And in here, it's the same old thing. You have an ID RSA in here, and that will get us over to the prod server. So if I'm Jenkins on the build server, I can do an SSH. So that's how we do this trick. So we just simply rely on the fact that we have keys from build to production, and probably should be run through Ansible or Chef or something different. But for this demo, this is how I did it. So I simply then will SSH with those keys to production. And now this part's interesting. So consider the fact that Jenkins is an unprivileged user, and on production, I installed a service to start and stop um, my Tomcat instance. So on production, let me get out of Jenkins here for a minute. So, whoa, didn't want to do that. Let's go back. Whoa. Didn't want to do that. Let's go back to production here. Sometimes you get lost. There's so many servers here to work with. You just think, where are we going now? Okay, let's get back to production, and I want to show you the service. Okay, here's production. I have no keys. Okay. So I did make a little service entry. So if you look here, there is a service entry here for the Tomcat demo right here. So let's take a look at that. And you'll like this. So all this does really is, this becomes a unit, and this would start this up automatically if a reboot happened, if you have it enabled, which I do. And this gives you the ability, okay, we're going to run this thing as Jenkins, and you probably wouldn't use Jenkins in production, but this is a demo again. So I'm using Jenkins on the server as a running, I guess, a service account to run this thing. Working directory is right now in Jenkins because we're not real production yet. And this is how it starts. So I just basically run a shell, and I'll run this and bring up the web app, and that's about it. So, and to do this, you need to be privileged. You need to be root. So let's see if it's running right now. It should be. Yep, there's our app running. So to turn this thing off, you would say sys control, stop Tomcat demo. And that will stop it. So now if you take a look at the Java, it's gone. And if you try to access the server, it's dead, which it should be. We turned it off. So that's good. And let's start it again. So, okay, so it started and you're like, so what? You do this all day, right? Well, here's something you're gonna like. Okay, so we're gonna go back to Jenkins, user on production here, and go to home on Jenkins. Okay, and check this out. So here I have a number of files. I have this whole repository that I pulled down from GitHub that has the actual files that run this thing. But then there's two additional files here. There's Tomcat demo start and Tomcat demo stop. And you're like, how does that work? So I'll show you. So here in our third build we're doing, the first thing we do is we stop the Tomcat demo. And you're like, well, Jenkins is a Jenkins user. It's not root. How do we do this? Well, I'll show you. So that'll stop it with that command, and that'll start it. Now, these are actually C binaries, so we can look at these and find their actual binaries, and they've been set up with um, special privileges to be able to run as root. So if a unprivileged user runs these two files, they will execute a command contained in these files to simply start Tomcat and stop it as a non-root user, as Jenkins. And that's a good trick. So you're wondering, okay, I want to see that trick. So let's show you that one. And it's some C code that I've used in other projects for other companies, and it's very useful. So let's jump over to production again. And okay, so here are those files. I started to create these in my own account. And let me show you how this works. So if I look at this program here, and I made this for a different project I was on a while back, not so far long back, but I made the C program, and basically this will run a command as a root from a non-root user. And basically all we do here is we run this command, and we set up in C a command string here, and you can see we're running this command. So we're saying system control start Tomcat demo as root, except we're not root. So that's a good trick. And when you are done compiling the program, you want to basically um, run these commands on the executable, and that will give the executable the power to work from a non-root user as root to run this command here. So that's my little cool trick. And so sure enough, ps -ef, and we'll do a grep for Java. Well, that didn't work. It's late, and you can tell it's late. So it's running. So the program is running here. The web server is running, which surprises me. Looks like it is running. Let's stop it now. So I am not a root user. I'm simply Jenkins. Well, no, I'm not. I'm jfall. Well, I can stop it as jfall too. So I'm jfall. I'm not privileged, and I'm going to run this command here, this program, and stop it as a non-root user, which will call system control stop Tomcat demo. Go like that, and let's do a PS on it. It's gone. Okay, so that is how to stop this thing as a non-root user from Jenkins, which I thought was kind of neat. Obviously, with Kubernetes, you can use kube control to do this stuff, and that'll be in a future demo. So let's now start it as a non-root user and take a look. It's running again. So that's kind of a cool thing, and that's how we can do production from Jenkins as a non-root, non-privileged user. So it should be up again. And just to show the build process once more, since we've gone into gory detail here, let's go back to dashboard here on Jenkins. And I'm going to say on our repository here, I'm going to go back into source. main web app. We'll finish with a change here. Gonna VI this thing and say, I hope you enjoyed the demo. And that's it. Let's save it. Go back to the top of our repository and get status and get add dot get status git commit -m. Now that's another very descriptive comment, and you shouldn't make comments that are glib. But anyway, it's a demo. Okay, there we go. And gonna do a git push. Push it up to the repository on GitHub. Okay, and yep, it went up there, right? So, and there goes the build. So let's watch this build happen. So that's building, and I guess we can refresh the page and see how this thing goes. Okay, so that's happened. These haven't finished yet. Nope, not done yet. What if I move the page wider? Sometimes this thing has some neat little GIFs going on. Okay, so it looks like they're done. Nothing has failed, the sun's out, so if it's all done, we can refresh this page and see what happens. And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed the demo. This is a 3-part pipeline. Very simple, no testing, but it shows how to do a push to a GitHub repository, how to do a webhook back home, and then kick it off. So I didn't really go into the gory details of the webhook. I do in my previous videos. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.